You're in the loop right here on Sports Radio 610. Let's talk about these Houston Rockets. They finally got the band back together on Saturday. They played the Sacramento Kings at home starting the month of March. And unfortunately, Fred VanVleet kind of turns his ankle early on in the game. He thugs it out, but it didn't look as good. In fact, that means he's not going to play tonight as they go to Oklahoma City to face off against the number 1 seed in the West, Thunder. But really, more importantly, they just lose. They lose to the Sacramento Kings. And this isn't specifically based off of that game in particular, but, seeing the way that the month of February went and seeing where they are, like, this team is not – they're not that team that we saw in January that went on, started going on fire, looked like they were going on a run, and that made, at least me personally, without speaking for others, think they could maybe sneak into a situation where they have an opportunity to be a level of contender. Are we off that now? Are we off that? 713-572-4610. Are we off the idea entirely of the Rockets as contenders? Because even if we are, I don't think that has to inherently mean a negative for this Rockets team. Understanding that we came into the season and the stated goal for the players themselves and the coaches and everything on this team was to make the playoffs, and they're still well within that particular goal, sitting 5th in the West right now and having a nice stretch of relatively easy games coming up. However, are we off them as contenders at this point?
I love that question because I think part of the answer is how much were we ever really on them as contenders, depending on how you define contenders.
Sure.
To me, a contender is a contender for your conference championship. I mean, I think that's where the baseline is.
Okay. I think that's fair.
Like you have a chance to get to a conference championship, win it, and then who knows beyond that. I don't know if either of us, any of us, including Figgy, were ever. One of the things that I mentioned is I think they should be able to get to the conference semifinals. I thought they were looking like a team that could get.
So you mean the second round?
Yeah, the second round.
I thought that there was absolutely that place where it's like, win a playoff series and then get to that spot and see what you do.
So were they ever really like contenders at that level for any of us? I don't think, but we were much higher on this team.
Yeah, I wouldn't say contenders, but they was close to it because they was beating some of the best teams in the league.
Yes.
So I'm like, man, it's there, but we all know they didn't have that one person that could just take over.
And that was the
rub. Pause for me.
Yeah, that was the rub. So I don't think we've necessarily changed. I think it's maybe lowered the bar a little bit because right now they're not looking like the same squad. I mean, they're just not.
No, and maybe this is me by myself because the text line, the Jim Allen, the Texas Hammer text line from the 713 contend for what? How high did you have them? From the 832 was never on that idea, even as a 2 seed with a round or pushing a team in the first round. It was going to be a huge year, young team set up for a decade, so on and so forth. I got to that place when they were playing a very high level of basketball in January for an extended period of time. And I think the reason why I got there was, one, I expect them to be able to win a first-round game, right? Especially if they were able to hold on to a place where you're sitting there as like a 2 or a 3. Because, one, you would get a pretty solid matchup in your first round. And then, 2, you might be able to avoid the possibility, like the really, really tough teams in the West, the toughest teams in the West, as like a 2-3. To win a second series and be in that place where you're now.
Where I was talking about.
Exactly, where you're now there. But the problem also is this team does not seem to stay on the formula. Like the formula that they had set for themselves, which is playing incredible defense, rebound the basketball, get second chance points, and just kind of tough it out. And then also, win some games close, as they have done. Like they have the most of those clutch wins. I think they have like 21, if memory serves me correctly. So they're getting a lot of those. However, it feels like of late, they've been slipping on the formula that they built for themselves. I was just asking you in the break to guess what their offensive rating was in the month of February.
And I said 22.
And it was 24th.
Yeah.
And then I asked you to guess their defensive rating.
Yeah, and I believe I said 18, 19, something like that.
And you were a little low on them. They're still 9th defensively, but that's what it was early on in the season. They found a way to kind of bring it in tighter to maybe make themselves like a top half offense with also a very good top 5 defense. And the month of February isn't the end-all, be-all. Obviously, they were missing a lot of guys during that time. But in one game back, and that's an incredibly small sample, you still did not see the team fully, snapping back to, great effort, incredible energy. Like you had you had a mess of turnovers
Yep.
against the Kings. And that's the type of thing that absolutely will preclude you from being any type of contender.
Yeah, all those things that you were talking about, in terms of what they were doing defensively, rebounding, et cetera. You just said the word. I mean, that all points to effort. And that's what just doesn't seem to be there. They're 3-2 since the All-Star break. Remember the All-Star break, what they lose 6 in a row at one point?
Yeah, 6 in a row. They won the last game headed into the All-Star break, if memory serves me correct.
But you were thinking, okay, this is a team that's gassed. No one on that squad was denying that they were gassed. And then they come off after, a 5-day break, and the effort still doesn't seem to be there. And so what does that point to? I don't know if it's it still comes down to they don't have the guy, but that's just more of an offensive thing. I think it also points to maybe some of their bigs inside are just getting figured out in terms of rebounding. Their rebounding has been okay, but not what it was. Turnovers, that's sloppy. They went from November and December, they were consistently second or third in a good way in terms of turnovers. Now they're 10th and 11th, back and forth. That's a big thing. Free throws, they're 28th in the NBA in free throws.
And we knew that was an issue, but that was something that you saw a little bit of progress in, and you knew that, hey, man, there needs to be an improvement, and it hasn't been an improvement. And maybe this is the better question to ask, because, again, contenders is a lofty bar from the 8-3-2. They say they're still very capable of making a run in the playoffs. It's the matter of mental health and fatigue. And I guess the question then that I ask is, are we in on the possibility of them making a deep run? Because I think I might be sliding back out of that where this is just going to be another step, which, again, not a bad thing. And for a Rockets team at this point that, again, Figgy, I think one of the main things for you always come, they don't have that necessarily. Even with that, they are in a place where I still like them to put on a really good opportunity in the first round, but I don't know about a run necessarily, especially if they're not going to be a team that wins on the margins, because they're also not a team that's going to come out and beat you over the head with just like raw talent necessarily.
Yeah. Well, they have the talent. They don't have the refined talent, is how I would put it. Jalen Green, we know the story there. I
will say, and we need to talk about this, we have not given Jalen Green the love that he deserves, because there has been a modicum of improvement
lately
for him.
A little bit more. But the other thing is, like, when they're playing well, obviously they're finishing games and closing out games. You quoted the number 21, games in which they've been able to
probably double check that.
Close out. But are we even getting that as much anymore? I think what I liked about that question is he said mental focus, mentally, exhausted. That points to my big rub with the free throws and the effort and turnovers. That's just focus. That's all that is. I mean, I know Fred VanVleet's going to help, in some, but it's not just VanVleet, with the turnovers.
No, and that's one of the things that I think Jabari was talking about when he came back. He was asked, and I should have gotten this audio. I apologize. Asked about like what Fred, like not having him did, and they know, hey, getting him back, he helps kind of calm things down. But they kind of liked that he wasn't there. Obviously, not there's something that they would do willingly, but they end up in that place, and they liked it because it kind of, he said that it forced them to think about it in those ways and try and like work on themselves, source the level of calm, level-headedness to a singular player. Everybody needs to find that within themselves. I don't know that they fully have that, but they're working towards that. And I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much in it. It feels like you can see for Ime, even when people try and give his team love, he's still in that place where he's like, no, there's still bounds to be taken by this young squad.
He's right. Now in terms of like winning a series, is that to me that's progress. You win a first round series as a number 4 or number 5 seed
after not making the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, not even making the play-in last year.
So it's not like you're down. I think your question was right in terms of making a run because I think if they can get to the 4 seed very easily. They have this 3-game road trip. And then the schedule softens a little bit.
It does. I know that they have the Pelicans a couple of times here in the month of March. Like the month of March is going to, obviously, it's basically the last month of basketball. I think you have a couple of games in April at the very beginning, 6 games in the beginning of April. But here's the remaining schedule, right? Tonight you go against the Thunder, a really bona fide Thunder team that is a contender in their own right. They're the best of the West right now. And I mean, I think there's maybe one other team that I list as a contender in the West, and that is out of deference to the best player in the world. Nikola Jokic with the Thunder or with the Nuggets, right? Then on the backside of the back-to-back, a fifth in probably like a few weeks, they go to Indy to face off against the Pacers. You want to play? You want to play a schedule game?
Well, no,
I'm saying, do you want to play a schedule game real quick? Do you want to say win-loss?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Pacers on the road.
I don't have a lot of confidence in that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Pelicans on the road at home.
Should be a dub.
Orlando Magic at home, though.
Yeah.
That might be a little tough.
It'll be tough. It'll be tough. Don't get me wrong, but I think that you can win that one.
They kind of similar to you, similar to the Rockets a little bit.
Maybe about a year or two ahead.
Yeah, they don't really have that offensive game like that, so they could possibly win that game, but it'd be tough.
Then the Suns, the Suns are going down the tank, which honestly, that's gonna be a fun double whammy game because the Suns have been getting to a place where with the losses that they add up, you having their first round pick this year, it looks kind of nice. I think right now, thanks to the Suns, the Rockets have a 7.1% chance of landing a top 4 pick in this draft. Yeah. And that only gets better if the Suns continue to lose games here. And I think it's like a 1.5% chance that you get the number 1 seed and Cooper Flagg comes and becomes a Rocket. But Suns and then Mavericks, Bulls, 76ers. You know what I mean? Like there's some games that you have an opportunity to get yourself in that space. But I think the real thing about it, and it's one of the things we keep talking about, they've got to get back to the formula, and they've got to have these guys lock in where it's like you may not beat guys on 3-point percentage, you may not beat teams on just raw, true shooting percentage, but you got to win. You got to win with hustle. You got to win with energy. You got to win with effort.
And they got to find it. They got to regain it because that was their calling card, and it's just gone right now.
Yeah,
to the level that it was.
I was like, I'm going to say it's entirely gone.
To the level that it was, yeah.
Yeah. All right. You're in the loop right here on Sports Radio 610.